for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson. I'm your host today. We have a heavy news day today. We got a lot of things to talk about, including an exclusive published report by the Washington Post about what the FBI and the Department of Justice found in Mar-A-Lago that was in Trump's possession. We also have to talk about a list of elected officials and police chiefs on a Oath Keepers list. I don't know if it's a membership list. They're saying it's not. One of those elected politicians is right in northern Michigan, so we'll talk about that. We have an update to a story involving Barry County, Michigan Sheriff Dar Leaf and his quote-unquote investigation into voter fraud. And we've got a lot to talk about. We have a Hammer Time segment this week and so much more. We have a very heavy news day, as I mentioned at the top of the show. So before we get started, a couple of reminders. You can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio, and you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Spreaker, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Reason.fm, Google Podcast, or Podcast Addict by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern, and you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us on your local Pacifica affiliate as well. And speaking of Facebook, I have apologies. I usually share the Southpaws link to several groups that I'm in. I couldn't do that last week because for the first time since I started sharing the links to all these different groups, Facebook sent me 11 warnings for sending spam. So one more reason why social media needs to be regulated like a public utility. Break them all up, get rid of the monopolies, and regulate them like a public utility. Oh my gosh, this is just crazy stuff here. And I should mention we are recording on Thursday, September 8th, 2022. We received news in the early part of the afternoon that Queen Elizabeth II of England passed away at the age of 96. Her son, Prince Charles, is now elevated to King Charles III of England. Or I guess Great Britain, whatever you want to call it. Well, I think it's time for the monarchy to go away for good forever. They leech off the tax money. Yes, they started paying taxes a few years ago, but they take in more government money than they pay out. So I think it's time to just do away with monarchies altogether all around the world. The one monarchy we need to get rid of in this country is the rich. The oligarchs. That's right. Call them a monarch, because that's pretty much what they are. They sit on their pedestal and they rule with an iron hand because they've got all the money and all the businesses. They own it all. Like Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it. Well, there's one big club that I am glad I'm not in, and that's the club that Donald Trump is in, because it's starting to look more and more like Donald Trump is going to get prosecuted and might go to prison. And I'll go on record right here, right now. That orange son of a bitch needs to be put in Terre Haute prison in the same cell as Marvin Gabriel. And let's see how long he lasts. For those of you that don't know the story about Marvin Gabriel, Gabriel is the only resident of Michigan to be sentenced to the death penalty in the state of Michigan under federal crimes because he killed a woman that he allegedly raped. She was getting ready to testify against him, killed her, threw her body weighted down in cement blocks in a lake inside of a national forest, which that is federal property, therefore federal crime. Her newborn daughter has never been seen since. He allegedly has killed several other people. This guy is absolute pure evil. And thankfully, the federal government prosecuted him and sentenced him to death. I'm sorry. That's one issue that I haven't gotten on board with. And the reason why is 2 words: Marvin Gabriel. There you go, folks. So let's get to the story. This is Lloyd Lee writing for Business Insider. This is dated September 6th. Highly confidential details about a foreign government's nuclear capabilities were among some of the documents that were seized by the FBI from Donald Trump's Mar-A-Lago home earlier in August. That's according to a new report published in the Washington Post, which cited several unnamed sources familiar with the search. Prior to the raid, Trump's team returned some documents that belonged to the government to the National Archive, more than 180 of which were later found to be marked classified. But the FBI raid turned over more White House files, including about 26 boxes and 11 sets of classified material. Let me mention, they also found folders that were marked top secret that were empty. I would love to know where the contents of those folders are. It was during the August 8th search that federal investigators found documents about a foreign government's nuclear defense capabilities. That is according to the published article in the Washington Post after they interviewed several anonymous sources familiar with the investigation. Details about which foreign government was in question and where Trump may have stored the documents were not revealed. A spokesperson for Donald Trump did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Yeah, that's probably smart on his part because he knows he's going to go to prison. You know, they executed the Rosenbergs for spying on this country. Hint, hint. On Monday, a federal judge in Florida approved Trump's request for a court-appointed third party to review the files that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. The Justice Department has argued that having a special master would impede its investigation and that the agency has its own filter team to identify any privileged documents. And I'm going to stop right there. Because of the nature of these nuclear documents, these are on a need-to-know basis, top-secret classified documents. That means that there's only a handful of people that can be chosen as a special master to begin with, because there are members of the National Security Council that don't even have access to these documents. It's on a need-to-know basis. So this judge has absolutely no idea what she's doing, but then again, is it a surprise? She's a Trump appointee, and Trump and his minions don't have a goddamn clue. Continuing the story, a White House spokesperson and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence did not immediately respond to a request for comment. So then this goes into a story that was published the following day, also at Business Insider. This is from Sophia Ankel. On August 26th, Donald Trump dismissed the idea that he may have taken nuclear secrets to Mar-a-Lago as, quote, public relations subterfuge, end of quote, by the FBI and the Justice Department. Less than 2 weeks later, the Washington Post reported about finding those documents, which we just read. Trump had long denied having any classified documents relating to nuclear weapons in Mar-a-Lago and has accused the FBI of planting evidence without offering proof. Well, of course, because the man is probably the most documented pathological liar in the history of this planet. On August 12th, Trump wrote this on his social media site because he's been banned from everywhere else. Listen to this. Quote, nuclear weapons issue is a hoax. Same sleazy people involved. Why wouldn't the FBI allow the inspection of areas of Mar-A-Lago with our lawyers or others present? Planning information, anyone? End of quote. He wrote that in a response to a published Washington Post story on August 11th, which said that the FBI was looking for classified documents to nuclear weapons at Mar-A-Lago. The Post story did not say whether the FBI found any. Then on August 26th, after the DOJ released a redacted version of their affidavit underpinning the search, Trump described the nuclear documents claim as FBI, quote, public relations subterfuge, end of quote. He wrote on August 26th, once again, on his own social media page, which, by the way, is getting ready to go out of business. He hasn't paid his bills again. Quote, affidavit heavily redacted. Nothing mentioned on nuclear, a total public relations subterfuge by the FBI and DOJ. End of quote. Tell you what, subterfuge this, Donnie. At least life in prison. I'm going to love it when that happens. Oh, but it might tear the country apart. You know what I say? Let it happen. Please let it happen. I'm going to say it. F*** around and find out. There you go, folks. I dare you. I triple dog dare you. Oh, gosh. Speaking of more evil, violent, conservative traitors, I have this story. This is Alana Durkin-Richer and Michael Kunzelman writing for the Associated Press, dated September 8th. Listen to this, folks. This should scare the hell out of you. The names of hundreds of U.S. law enforcement officers, elected officials, and military members appear on the leaked membership rolls of a far-right extremist group that's accused of playing a key role in the January 6, 2021 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. That is according to a report released Wednesday. Let me add, traitorous insurrection. These people are not patriots. They are traitors. The Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism poured over more than 38,000 names on leaked Oath Keepers membership lists and identified more than 370 people it believes currently work in law enforcement agencies, including as police chiefs and sheriffs, and more than 100 people who are currently members of the military. It also identified more than 80 people who are running for or served in public office as of early August. The membership information was compiled into a database published by the Transparency Collective Distributed Denial of Secrets. By the way, DDoS heroes in this. Big-time heroes. The data raises fresh concerns about the presence of extremists in law enforcement and the military who are tasked with enforcing laws and protecting the U.S. Let me add that enforcing laws is not true. They don't enforce anything. They show up after the crime has happened. So there you go, folks. It's especially problematic for public servants to be associated with extremists at a time when lies about the 2020 election are fueling threats of violence against lawmakers and institutions. The report reads this way. Even for those who claim to have left the organization when it began to employ more aggressive tactics in 2014, it is important to remember that the Oath Keepers have espoused extremism since their founding, and this fact was not enough to deter these individuals from signing up. There you go. That's the summary right there. Appearing in the Oath Keepers database doesn't prove that a person was ever an active member of the group or shares this ideology. You know what I say about that? Oh, yeah. Some people on the list contacted by the Associated Press said they were briefly members years ago and are no longer affiliated with the group. Oh, really? Some said they were never dues-paying members. In an email to the Associated Press, Sean Mobley, the sheriff of Otero County, Colorado, said, quote, "Their views are far too extreme for me," end of quote. He told AP that he distanced himself from the Oath Keepers years ago over concerns about his involvement in the standoff against the federal government at the Bundy Ranch in Bunkerville, Nevada, among other things. Yeah, you remember when they took over and they didn't bring any food with them? Oh, God. Morons. Right-wing morons. The Oath Keepers, founded in 2009 by Stuart Rhodes, is a loosely organized conspiracy theory-fueled group that recruits current and former military, police, and first responders. It asks its members to vow to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, promotes the belief that the federal government is out to strip citizens of their civil liberties, and paints its followers as defenders against tyranny. No, you got the federal government confused with the rich people who own the federal government. So, yeah, they're kind of sort of right on that. They just haven't taken it all the way through to the source of the problem. More than 24 people associated with the Oath Keepers, including Rhodes, have been charged in connection with the January 6th traitorous attack. Rhodes and 4 other Oath Keeper members or associates are heading to trial this month on seditious conspiracy charges for what prosecutors have described as a weeks-long plot to keep Donald Trump in power. Rhodes and the other Oath Keepers say that they are innocent and there was no plan to attack the Capitol. Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? The Oath Keepers has grown quickly along with the wider anti-government movement and used the tools of the internet to spread their message during Barack Obama's presidency. That's according to Interim Deputy Director of Research with the Southern Poverty Law Center's Intelligence Project, Rachel Carroll Rivas. But since January 6th and Rhodes' arrest, the group has struggled to keep members. She said that's partly because Oath Keepers had been associated so strongly with Rhodes that the removal of the central figure had an outsized impact, and partly because many associated with the group were often those who wanted to be considered respectable in their communities. She said, quote, "The image of being associated with January 6th was too much for many of those folks," end of quote. Among the elected officials whose name appears on the membership list is South Dakota State Representative Phil Jensen, who won a June Republican primary in his bid for re-election. Jensen told the AP he paid for a one-year membership in 2014, but never received any Oath Keepers literature, attended any meetings, or renewed his membership. Jensen said he felt compelled to join because he, quote, "believed in the oath that we took to support the U.S. Constitution and to defend it against enemies foreign and domestic," end of quote. He wouldn't say whether he now disavows the Oath Keepers, saying he doesn't have enough information about the group today. Oh, really? He had the temerity to tell the Associated Press, quote, "Back in 2014, they appeared to be a pretty solid conservative group. I can't speak to them now," end of quote. Yeah, he can. He knows what they are. ADL said it found the names of at least 10 people who now work as police chiefs and 11 sheriffs. All of the police chiefs and sheriffs who responded to the Associated Press said they no longer have any ties to the group. Mike Hollinshead, sheriff of Idaho's Elmore County, said, quote, "I don't even know what they're posting. I never get any updates. I'm not paying dues or membership fees or anything," end of quote. Hollinshead, a Republican, said he was campaigning for sheriff several years ago when voters asked him if he was familiar with the Oath Keepers. Hollinshead said he wanted to learn about the group and recalls paying for access to content on the Oath Keepers website, but that was the extent of his involvement. Oh, I don't know about that. Benjamin Beakey, police chief in Oskaloosa, Iowa, recalled getting emails from the group years ago and said he believes a friend may have signed him up. but he said he never paid to become a member and doesn't know anything about the group. Eric Williams, police chief in Idalou, Texas, also said in an email that he hasn't been a member or had any interaction with the Oath Keepers in over 10 years. He called the storming of the Capitol, quote, terrible in every way. I pray this country finds its way back to civility and peace in discourse with one another, end of quote. Well, you know how you get that peace. Karl Popper talked about it in his Paradox of Tolerance. So the ADL found people in Michigan that were members of the Oath Keepers. Those include, you'll love this, 1 elected official, 4 members of law enforcement, 2 members of the military, and 3 first responders. And MLive talked to the only politician on the list. This is Ben Orner reporting. This is September 8th. A city council member in rural northern Michigan is the only elected official among hundreds of Michiganders found to be members of the Oath Keepers, a far-right militia group that played a central role in last year's U.S. Capitol attack. But Roger Marsh, who was elected to the Onaway City Council last November, said he paid membership dues only once, at least 6 years ago, and was not an active participant as the group rose to extremist prominence. The 65-year-old city council member told MLive, quote, I joined and then I just forgot about it. I never really paid any attention, end of quote. Yeah, that's going to be the excuse they all use. I signed up years ago. I never got anything from them. I just forgot about them. Yeah. Onaway is a city of 890 people located near the tip of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. I know right where Onaway is, right? It's hardcore Trump country up there. Marsh's membership was discovered by the Anti-Defamation League, a Jewish civil rights organization that analyzed a 2021 leak of Oath Keepers records. Researchers identified 855 Michiganders among 38,000 people who paid for a membership at some point, although the Associated Press says that doesn't prove that they paid for a membership. So we'll see what that all entails here. They include Marsh, 4 people in law enforcement, 3 first responders, and 2 in the military. ADL spokesperson Jake Hyman, who first told MLive of Marsh, said he could only share names of elected officials. Well, why not? I'd get them all. Oh, somebody needs to leak the names out totally to the public. We need to shine the light on these cockroaches and watch them scurry. The ADL describes Oath Keepers as a right-wing anti-government extremists who are part of the militia movement, which believes that the federal government has been co-opted by a shadowy conspiracy that is trying to strip American citizens of their rights. But Marsh, one of 81 elected officials or candidates nationwide identified by the ADL, takes issue with being lumped in with people being called extremists. He said, quote, I don't belong to a militia. I never belonged to a militia. I don't belong to any group that advocates violence of any form whatsoever. To be painted with that brush, I find very irresponsible and irksome. End of quote. Well, yeah. Yeah, you should be irked by it. Take responsibility for your own actions. Marsh said he doesn't remember how he learned of the Oath Keepers, but he was a police officer when he joined. Well, there you go. He said he agreed with the group's original intent that people who take an oath for office, like police officers, soldiers, and first responders, should refuse orders that violate citizens' constitutional rights. Well, maybe they should have told that to the paramedics in San Francisco that gave the lady the injection of a sedative just simply for protesting during Game 5 of the NBA Finals, which, by the way, she's suing for, and I hope she becomes a millionaire over it. Oh, God. He recalled his membership packet containing a card, some bumper stickers, and a DVD. One of the videos, Marsh said, showed Ohio National Guard troops refusing to follow orders of removing people's firearms while going around to houses impacted by a hurricane. Marsh, a former Marine who spent 8.5 years as Onaway's police chief and now owns a local sporting goods store, said, quote, I'm not going to deny my membership in Oath Keepers. I'm not going to denounce it. I'm not ashamed of it. End of quote. He then added, quote, but again, I never even been contacted by anyone from Oath Keepers after I signed up. End of quote. Really? By the way, if any of my listeners in the upper part of Michigan's Lower Peninsula knows the name of this local sporting goods store that this douchebag owns, please get a hold of me, southpawsradio@gmail.com, because I'd love to start a boycott of that business. Shut him down. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. He also said his Oath Keepers membership does not inform his actions on city council, and it's something he hasn't thought about in years. Yeah, really. The group grabbed national attention for allegedly helping. There is no allegedly. They're on trial. They're going on trial this month. Oh, for Christ's sakes. I know we got to say allegedly because they're not convicted, and I've said that before on the show, so I guess I got to stick with it. Marsh said that he believes the January 6th attack has been grossly misrepresented, preferring to call it a protest, although he said he would not have participated and does not support, quote, any kind of violence or extremism. No, you just admitted to it. You just admitted to it. Oh, it's just a protest. Yeah. Tell that to the Capitol police officers who were killed that day, or the ones that have committed suicide afterwards because of post-traumatic stress disorder. Marsh said of growing political extremism, quote, the country we live in today is not the country I served, and I'm very disheartened by it, but to go and pick up an AR and decide, yeah, me and the other boys from the Oath Keepers are going to storm wherever and right wrongs? No, nothing like that. That's ludicrous. End of quote. Well, you were part of it. You were a part of it. Period. End of story. You must have believed it at some point, and you probably still do, but you got called out on your bullshit, and you don't want the media to roast your name for the next election. I mean, really, that's all it is. As I said before, all Republicans want to do is they want to keep power. They don't want to rule. They don't want to pass laws to help out everybody else. They want to help their rich buddies. They want to help the people that own them, and they want to stay in power. They don't give a goddamn about you. They do not. Period. End of story. Oh my God. I am getting fired up right now. And I have reason to be fired up. I'm going to get to this next story here. This is an update on the quote-unquote investigation into election fraud, end of quote, which, by the way, never happened. I have this story. This is Rachel Van Gilder writing for Wood Television, dated September 8th, out of Muskegon. This is great news, folks. Muskegon County Prosecutor DJ Hilson has been named the special prosecutor to look into whether several people, including the Berry County Sheriff and the Republican candidate for State Attorney General, should face charges for making off with voting tabulators. We've told you all about this. Just go back into our archives and you'll get all the gory details on this. In a Thursday statement, Hilson said his office, quote, is in the process of gathering all the information and evidence already collected, end of quote, and set up meetings with the Michigan State Police investigators who have been handling the case. In the statement, Hilson stated, quote, once all of that work has been done, we will begin the process of reviewing all the information as well as reviewing the best process to use in determining whether there is sufficient evidence to issue criminal charges, end of quote. Hilson did not have a timeline for when he might make a decision. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, a Democrat, last month asked the Michigan Prosecuting Attorneys Coordinating Council to select a special prosecutor because she is up for election in November against one of the people allegedly involved, Attorney Matt DePerno of Kalamazoo, a Republican. More like, Kyuku, Kyuku. DePerno, State Representative Diary Rendon, Republican of Lake City, Berry County Sheriff Darleaf, and 6 others are accused of getting local township clerks to give them voting tabulators as they, quote-unquote, investigated substantiated suspicions of fraud in the November 2020 presidential election. By the way, the state has investigated no fraud. That comes from the Republican legislature. No fraud. One such machine from Irving Township in Berry County was taken in 2021. That's according to previous Wood TV reports in talking with the Berry County clerk. The clerk said someone from Leaf's office and a third party took the machine to Detroit, quote, tore it apart, end of quote, and ultimately returned it with a broken security seal. The Detroit News reported that other tabulators were taken in Roscommon and Missaukee counties in the northern Lower Peninsula. The Berry County prosecutor told Channel 8 in July that Leaf has 3 times presented her with documents from his investigation into the election. She has found no probable cause to show voter fraud. DePerno has been endorsed by Donald Trump, whose camp has promoted the false accusations of voter fraud. Hilson, a Democrat, added in a statement that he cannot discuss details of the case under ethics rules. So there you go, folks. Evil, violent, conservative traitors. All of them. All of them. And before we get on to our next story, this kind of all ties in together. We have some late breaking news as well. The Michigan Supreme Court, in a 5-2 ruling, has ordered the State Board of Canvassers to put on the ballot the petition initiative to codify abortion rights into the Michigan State Constitution. So we get to vote on it. The Board of Canvassers originally tied 2-2. The 2 Republicans were talking about spacing in between the letters and in between the words, and it was all jumble. No, the jumble is what's in their minds. These are evil, violent, conservative traitors that don't want women to make choices about whether or not they want to carry a child. They're going to force birth on them. They're going to force them to go home and slave in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, and they're going to take your voting rights away. They're going to do this. They've been doing this. You folks need to wake up. I don't know why anybody votes for Republicans. They want control, and they want to be dictators. They want to be like Putin or Xi or Kim Jong-un. You name the tin pot dictator, that's who they emulate. Oh, by the way, the Michigan State Supreme Court also ruled today ordering the Board of Canvassers to also put on the November ballot the petition initiative to expand voting rights in Michigan. The Republicans are going to be in deep shit in November. They're going to lose. They're going to lose big time, and I'm going to laugh when they do. You sons of bitches have been wanting to trample women's rights. You've been wanting to trample on LGBTQ plus people, literally and figuratively, for decades. The chickens are coming home to roost for you bastards. And when they do, I'm going to drink and I'm going to laugh. And I'm going to do it loudly in public. So somebody better have bail money for me, because I'll go off on them just like I did 2 weeks ago trying to get breakfast at a restaurant. I don't care. I do not care. Like Jack said last week, you need to stand up to these people loudly, pound on the table, get in their face and scream, because that's what they've done to us for 40 years. Good God. By the way, DePerno has gone on Twitter and has accused Dana Nessel of playing politics, and this is a war against Republicans, and blah, 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 blah. No, you're pissed because you're going to be held accountable for what you did, and you might go to prison too. And you know what? You can share a cell with Marvin Gabriel and see how long you last. All right, let's get to our next story here. Some good news. This is Ed White writing for the Associated Press, dated September 7th, out of Detroit. A judge on Wednesday struck down Michigan's 1931 anti-abortion law, months after suspending it. It's the latest development over abortion rights in a state where the issue is being argued in courtrooms and at the ballot box. It's going to be on the ballot, and it's going to pass, and so is expanding voting rights. And you Republicans are going to go down in flames, and I'm going to laugh some more. The law, which was long dormant before the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in June, violates the Michigan Constitution. That's stated in a ruling from Court of Claims Judge Elizabeth Gleicher. Gleicher wrote this, quote, "A law denying safe, routine medical care not only denies women of their ability to control their bodies and their lives, it denies them of their dignity. Michigan's Constitution forbids this violation of due process," end of quote. By the way, a reminder that supporters of the ballot initiative to codify abortion rights into the Constitution submitted over 700,000 signatures. It's the most signatures ever gathered for a petition. This is great. In the case handled by Gleicher, the 1931 law makes it a crime to perform an abortion unless the mother's life is in danger. The judge said that the law, quote, "compels motherhood," end of quote, or as I say it very plain and simple, it forces birth on women and prevents a woman from determining, quote, "the shape of her present and future life," end of quote. Gleicher, quoting constitutional scholar Lawrence Tribe, wrote that the law, quote, "forces a pregnant woman to forego her reproductive choices and to instead serve as an involuntary vessel entitled to no more respect than other forms of collectively owned property," end of quote. Yeah, call it indentured servitude, call it slavery, call it what you want, because it's all the same thing. It really is. The law was suspended in May with an injunction following a lawsuit by Planned Parenthood of Michigan. Gleicher said her latest decision applies to all state and local prosecutors. An appeal by the Republican-controlled legislature is possible. Spokesman Gideon DeSandro said, quote, "the House is reviewing the ruling," end of quote. Gleicher acknowledged in July that she has been a regular donor to Planned Parenthood and gave $1,000 to the 2018 campaigns of Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Attorney General Dana Nessel, both Democrats who support abortion rights. But Gleicher, who also serves as chief judge on the Michigan Court of Appeals, said that support wasn't a reason to pass the case to another judge, saying, quote, "judges are presumed to be unbiased and impartial," end of quote. In a separate lawsuit, Governor Whitmer has repeatedly asked the state Supreme Court to bypass lower courts and settle the status of the 1931 law. The court hasn't decided whether to intervene. Governor Whitmer said Wednesday, quote, "with our rights still hanging by a thread, the Michigan Supreme Court needs to provide certainty," end of quote. Yes, they do. And boy, folks, do I have a story for you out of Bismarck, North Dakota. This is the Associated Press writing on September the 6th. This made my heart feel really good because somebody did something about an issue that I have talked about for years on this show. And I think finally some of the Democrats in power are starting to wake up. Listen to this, folks. Former Miss America Kara Munn's entry into North Dakota's U.S. House race has led the Democratic candidate to drop out, citing pressure from his own party to step aside. Munn entered the race in August as an independent, citing her support for abortion rights as a major reason. Tuesday was the deadline for her to submit 1,000 petitions to qualify for the ballot. North Dakota's only House seat is currently held by Republican Representative Kelly Armstrong, who won his second term in the deeply conservative state in 2020 with 69% of the vote. Armstrong opposes abortion rights. The Democrat that was running, Mark Haugen, said Sunday that his opposition to abortion rights cost him support in the party. That's according to a report published by the Bismarck Tribune. He said he didn't see a path to winning. Democratic NPL party chairman Patrick Hart said in a statement that he doesn't, quote, "tell anyone what to do," end of quote, but that he supports Haugen's decision to drop out. Haugen, a University of Mary graduate advisor in Bismarck who has long worked as a paramedic, faced no opposition in the Democratic primary in June. Mund is a Bismarck native and Harvard Law School graduate who was Miss America 2018. I love this story. Once again, I'm going to preach it until I die. The Democratic Party needs to purge all of the centrists, all of the pro-life people, all the anti-choice people, purge them out of the party. If they want to be savages, they can go be Republicans. Period. Full stop. Really. And I've had friends, but you can't do that. I actually got into an argument a couple of months ago. Oh, but you're alienating African Americans who are pro-life. I don't care. Where are they going to go? They need to change their thinking on controlling women. That's all it is. First off, religion is the... Don't even get me started. Do not even get me started on religion and the BS that comes out of the church. Because they're violent too. Very violent. And have been for centuries. I'm sure I'll probably get hate mail on that one. I just don't care anymore. I really don't care. And real quickly, one other election note. This comes from Wood Television, dated September 7th, out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. The debate between the candidates for the 3rd Congressional District has been canceled after Republican candidate John Gibbs withdrew from the agreed-upon date. So the Republicans don't want to get called out on their bullshit, just like they all are. Every single one of them. I don't want to debate. I'll get my ass kicked in the debate. Yeah, because you angered women. You made a mistake by going after Roe. And now you're going to pay for it, and I'm going to love it. I'm really going to. I am. I mean every single word that I say. If abortion is codified into the state constitution, I'm going out drinking either that night or the following night, and I'm going to be loud and obnoxious, and the first conservative that comes up in my face is going to eat my fist, and I don't care, because simple assault is $200 bail, and I'm out in 4 hours. I'm sick of these people. I really am. Let me continue the story here. The debate between Gibbs and Democratic candidate Hillary Scholten was expected to be hosted by Wood TV on September 13th. Both sides had approved that date before it was announced by News 8 on August 29th. Then this week, Gibbs said the date was no longer viable. Wood TV has asked the campaigns to discuss whether they can agree to an alternative date. Michigan's newly redrawn 3rd Congressional District includes the core of West Michigan, from the city of Grand Rapids to the lakeshore, including Grand Haven and Muskegon. West Michigan voters will choose a new representative in a district that has been in the national eye in recent years and is considered a national political bellwether. Yeah, it's because Gibbs defeated Peter Meyer in the primary thanks to the DCCC, which I have criticized on this show. Democrats need to stop propping up what they consider to be Pied Piper candidates. It backfired on you in 2016, and it's going to backfire on you again in 2022 if you don't smarten up. All right, now I got something else I can get mad about, so let's go on to our next story here.
Stop! Hammer time!
Oh yeah, it's hammer time. It is time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week. And this week's winner is the Oklahoma Secretary of Education. His name is Ryan Walters. So let's get to that story. This is Kenneth Niemeyer and Haven Horatio Agresitz writing for Business Insider. This is dated September 2nd. The Oklahoma Secretary of Education wants to revoke the license of a high school English teacher who gave her students access to banned books. We told you about this story 2 weeks ago on this show. Secretary of Education Ryan Walters asked the Oklahoma State Board of Education to revoke Summer Boyce-Meyer's teaching license in a letter to the board on Thursday of last week. Boismeyer is the former English teacher at Norman High School who resigned last month after the school put her on leave when she told her students about Unbanned, a program out of the Brooklyn Public Library that provides access to free ebooks of banned literature. In the letter, Walter said, quote, "There is no place for a teacher with a liberal political agenda in the classroom," end of quote. No, she was answering her kids' questions. You want to know what shouldn't be in the classroom? Conservative political agenda, because it's violent. Walter accused Boismeyer of giving her students access to, quote, banned and pornographic material, end of quote. That's the dumbest goddamn thing I have ever heard. It didn't happen, folks. It's bullshit. Walters also said, quote, "We must ensure she doesn't go to another district and do the same thing," end of quote. No, I hope she's smart enough to get the out of Oklahoma and never come back. Don't look back. Go to somewhere where you'll be appreciated, like Minnesota. Unbelievable. Because they don't like what she said. They want to take away her right to make money, her right to live. Let's just call it what it is. They want to take away her livelihood. They want to take away her freedom. And I don't mean freedom. That's what the Republicans want. They want you free to be as stupid as they want you to be. Like Carlin said, they want people who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to increasingly accept all the shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it, and then they're coming for your Social Security money because they want it all back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. Hey, I know this routine by now. And if you folks don't know it, you better get on board. The time is now. The coffee's brewing. It's time to wake up. The Board of Education did not immediately return Business Insider's request for comment on Friday. Insider was the first to report that Norman Public Schools put Boismeyer on administrative leave after a parent reported to the district that she violated state law House Bill 1775. The district allowed her to return to work a day later, but she resigned. Boismeyer told Business Insider that Oklahoma's recent law is moving the state backward and making it harder for teachers to teach honestly, which is what the Republicans want. Conservatives want you to be stupid. The law bans 8 concepts from K through 12 classrooms, including that one race or sex is superior to another, an individual is inherently racist, and that people should feel discomfort on account of their race or sex. People who feel a school or teacher is violating the law because of how a subject is being taught or what materials are provided can submit a complaint. To protect themselves and the school district, some teachers in Norman Public Schools have removed their classroom libraries or covered books with paper. That's according to Boismeyer. A representative for Norman Public Schools initially told Business Insider that Boismeyer made personal political statements and made a political display expressing those opinions in her classroom. Yeah, because they wanted to also take away your First Amendment rights to free speech, to question authority, because the Republicans want to be the authority. They want to be dictators. I'm being blunt, folks. That's the only way to do it. And candidates, stop using fancy language. Get to the point and get dirty with it. You want to be successful? That's how you do it. Brooklyn Public Library, which oversees the Unbanned program, released a statement condemning efforts to ban books. A spokeswoman for the library, Fritzi Bodenheimer, told Business Insider, quote, "Brooklyn Public Library stands firmly against censorship and for the principles of intellectual freedom, the right of every individual to seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. Limiting access or providing one-sided information is a threat to democracy itself, and we cannot sit idly by while books rejected by a few are removed from library shelves for all." End of quote. Boismeyer told Business Insider Wednesday that she has received a large amount of support since her resignation. She said, quote, "Yes, I have resigned, and yes, I have received some hate, but overall the support has far outweighed any negative commentary." End of quote. Good for her. Good for her for sticking up for her principles. Like I said, folks, this is a war on intelligence. We've said it on this show. It's smart versus stupid. Republicans want to keep you stupid, free to be dumb, dumber than dirt, dumber than a bag of wet hammers. That's what they want, because that's what they are. They hate intelligent people because they're not intelligent themselves. So they're jealous. It's like the people that are paid low wages and bitch about union workers. Oh, why is he making that much money? The question ought to be, why am I not making that much money? They've got a phrase wrong, and the rich have started this. The rich have done this for years, for decades, and they've been successful at it with dividing people by class, by economic class. Skin color and race wasn't enough. Now we got to go after economic class. Oh, watch out for that poor person getting that welfare. He's going to steal your cookie. While the rich person has 11 cookies of their own, and they give you one, and they give the poor person nothing, not even crumbs. It's disgusting. This is why I say every week on this show, eat the rich. So to Oklahoma Secretary of Education Ryan Walters, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, you got that right. I tell you what, I'm telling the truth here, folks. Republicans want to keep you all dumber than dirt. They really do. Don't stand for this stuff. All right, let's get to our final story. More great news. This has been a great show. We've had good news pretty much from top to bottom other than douchebag of the week. So let's get to our final good news story. This is Michael R. Sisak writing for the Associated Press, dated September 8th, out of New York City. Donald Trump's longtime ally Steve Bannon surrendered Thursday to face charges in New York alleging he duped donors who gave money to build a wall on the U.S. southern border. It's a state-level reboot of a federal case that ended with a presidential pardon last year. The 68-year-old Bannon is scheduled to be arraigned Thursday afternoon on charges including money laundering, conspiracy, and fraud related to the We Build the Wall campaign. He is the second person pardoned by Trump and later charged by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for the same alleged conduct. Yeah, because presidential pardons only fit federal laws. They can't do anything about state laws. Governors pardon state law crimes. So there you go. I love it. Manhattan prosecutors say that while Bannon promised all donations would go to building the wall, he was involved in transferring hundreds of thousands of dollars to third-party entities and used them to funnel payments to two other people involved in the scheme. The indictment didn't identify those people by name, but the details matched those of Brian Kolfage and Andrew Badolato, who pled guilty to federal charges in April. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg said in a statement, quote, "It is a crime to turn a profit by lying to donors, and in New York you will be held accountable." End of quote. Bannon's New York charges stem from the same alleged conduct as an attempted federal prosecution that ended abruptly before trial when Trump pardoned Bannon on his last day in office. Manhattan prosecutors also charged We Build the Wall Incorporated, the nonprofit entity that Bannon and his former co-defendants used to solicit donations. Presidential pardons, as I mentioned just a minute ago, apply only to federal crimes, not state crimes. Last year, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office charged Ken Kurson, a friend of Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, with cyberstalking months after Trump pardoned him in a similar federal case. Like Bannon, Kurson was pardoned early in his federal case before acquittal or conviction, negating any double jeopardy argument. Arriving at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office shortly after 9 a.m. Thursday, Bannon said it was an irony that New York City's mayor has been objecting to busloads of migrants sent to the city from Texas, while prosecutors, quote, "are persecuting people here that try to stop them at the border," end of quote. Well, I tell you what, when you defraud people, you're going to go to prison, Stevie. Bannon said in a statement Tuesday that federal prosecutors, quote, "did the exact same thing in August 2020 to try to take me out of the election," end of quote, He is referring, of course, to his arrest months before Trump's re-election loss. Bannon added, quote, "This is nothing more than a partisan political weaponization of the criminal justice system," end of quote. He sounds like Matt DiPerno. They use the same playbook. They all use the same playbook. The same language, the same way. In 2020, federal agents pulled Bannon from a luxury yacht off the Connecticut coast and arrested him on charges he pocketed more than $1 million in donations to the wall building effort. In all, over $25 million was raised, according to prosecutors. In that case, federal prosecutors alleged that Bannon and his co-defendants capitalized on public fervor over border security, a pillar of Trump's presidential campaign, and tricked thousands of people into thinking 100% of their donations would go to building a wall along the 1,933-mile U.S.-Mexico border. According to federal prosecutors, Bannon instead used some of the money to pay personal expenses for himself and a secret salary to Colfage, who we just mentioned was a We Build the Wall co-founder. So there you go, folks. And I want to end this week's show with, it's a great, oh my God. This is one of the best things that I have ever heard. Ken Casey of the band Dropkick Murphys recently was in concert and ripped on the MAGA movement. So we're going to end with this. And folks, that does it for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson. Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
If you were part of a union or working class people who were allowed to build a better life in the middle class in America, you f***ing listen to us. Because if you're out there buying those f***ing hats that these swindlers are selling at that f***ing fair, I'm sorry kids, I know there's kids here, then you're part of the problem, and I'll tell you why. Because you're being duped by the greatest swindler in the history of the world. You're being duped by a bunch of grifters and billionaires who don't give a shit about you or your family. They care about their tax breaks and the money they can put in their pocket. If you consider yourself a patriot and you're spouting off that election denying shit, I will fight your ass outside if you want to. Wake the f*** up! We're working class people. These people are the f***ing rich, the billionaires, and they don't give a shit. Thank you for listening.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment, all rights reserved.